Hey guys, this is Market Structures, Econ 3.1. We live in a market economy, but also there are markets within our market economy. Today, economists classify markets according to the conditions that prevail in those markets. They ask questions like, how many buyers and suppliers are there? How large are they? Does either have any influence over price? How much competition exists between firms? What kind of product is involved? Is everyone trading the exact same product, or are they simply similar? Is it easy or difficult for new firms to enter the market? The answers to these questions help determine market structure, or the nature and degree of competition among firms or businesses operating in the same industry. Economists group firms or businesses into four different market structures: perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. So let's suppose you want to start a new business. Review the scenarios on the next slide and decide under which conditions you would prefer to start your business. Give at least 2 reasons to justify your selection. Would you like to open a video game store in a small town that has many other successful video game stores? Or would you prefer to begin the first and only babysitting service in your neighborhood? Or would you prefer to start a music store in a small town that has only 2 other music stores? And finally, would you like to create a unique clothing line that targets teenagers? Market structures. So based on what you chose, those different businesses fall into different categories of market structures, which we'll go through in class. Characteristics of markets. First of all, we have to look at the number of firms. How many firms or businesses produce this type of product? What is the type of product? Do all competing firms make products that are essentially the same, or are they specialized? What are the barriers to entry? How easy is it for a firm or a business to enter the market? What's the competition like? What are the startup costs involved? And other considerations. What is the price-setting power? How much control does a firm have over the selling price of the product they're making? Those are the 4 questions that we ask ourselves to determine which structure the market falls into. Perfect competition. Perfect competition is one of the 4 basic market structures. The 4 basic market structures are defined by how competitive they are. Perfect competition is the most competitive, and many producers offer identical products. Perfect competition exists on the continuum of market structures. In this continuum, it's all the way to the left. Perfect competition answers the 4 questions in the fact that it has many producers, there are identical products, there's easy entry, and there's no control over prices. There are a large number of buyers and sellers. No single buyer or seller is large enough or powerful enough to affect the price. Another condition is that buyers and sellers deal in identical products. With no difference in quality, there is no need for brand names and no need to advertise. One seller's merchandise is just as good as another's. The market for table salt shares some of these features. Because salt is always the same chemical compound, sodium chloride, there is no logical reason to prefer one brand of salt or another. An additional characteristic of perfect competition is easy entry. Easy entry means that buyers and sellers are free to enter into, conduct, and get out of that business. This freedom makes it difficult for producers in any industry to keep the market to themselves. Producers have to keep prices competitive, or new firms can take away some of their business. Finally, no control over prices. That means that all buyers and sellers are well informed about products and prices. Well-informed buyers shop at the stores that have the lowest prices, and well-informed sellers match the lowest price of their competitors to avoid losing customers. Examples here would include farmers markets, agricultural business in general, whether it's corn, wheat, soybeans, and finally the stock market. Yes, the stocks are different. However, an Apple stock at one firm should cost you the same at another firm. Monopoly. A monopoly is a market with one producer offering a product for which are no good substitutes. Examples generally include water, power, and cable TV industries. Monopoly is on the other end of the spectrum as far as competition goes in reference to market structures. It is the least competitive of all markets because there is only one producer, they have a unique product, there are relatively high barriers to entry, and there's substantial control over prices. That's the answer to those 4 questions. A monopoly is a market structure with only one seller of a particular product. This situation, like that of perfect competition, is an extreme case. In fact, the American economy has very few, if any, cases of pure monopoly, although the local telephone or cable companies may come close. Just like Charter, that's the only cable company, Dish TV and DirecTV offer something different in the fact that it's satellite equipment. One reason we have so few monopolies is that Americans traditionally have disliked them and tried to outlaw them. Another reason is that new technologies often introduce products that compete with existing monopolies. The development of fax machines allowed businesses to send electronic letters that competed with the United States Postal Service, leading to its decline. Later came emails, which are even more popular than the fax. Some examples, like I said, are water, cable TV, and prescription drugs, assuming there's no substitute for the prescription drug in the form of a generic. When monopolies do exist, there are different types of monopolies that do exist. There are natural monopolies, geographic monopolies, technological, and government monopolies. Sometimes the nature of a good or service dictates that society would be served best by a monopoly. One such case is a natural monopoly, a market situation where the costs of production are minimized by having a single firm produce the product. Natural monopolies can provide services more cheaply as monopolies than could several competing firms. For example, 2 or more competing telephone companies serving the same area would be inefficient if they each needed their own telephone poles and lines. Public utility companies fall into this category also because it would be wasteful to duplicate the networks of pipes and wires that distribute water, gas, and electricity throughout the city. To avoid these problems, the government, like the city of Byron, often gives a public utility company a franchise, the exclusive right to do business in a certain area without competition. By accepting such a franchise, the companies also accept a certain amount of government regulation. Here are some examples of types of monopolies. So, like I said, natural monopoly is a single large seller that produces most efficiently, like utilities. The next type of monopoly is a geographic monopoly. Sometimes a business has a monopoly because of its location. A drugstore opening in a town that is too small to support 2 or more such businesses becomes what we call a geographic monopoly, or a lone gas station. The profit potential is so limited by that single location that only one seller enters the market. Technological monopoly is where a new product is made, like a new prescription drug. It's based on the ownership or control of manufacturing, the manufacturing method, the process, or some kind of scientific advancement. The government offers patents for these things and copyrights, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Finally, there's what we call a government monopoly, a monopoly that the government owns and operates. Government monopolies are found at the national, state, and local levels. In most cases, they involve products or services that private industry cannot adequately provide, such as roads or bridges. In reference to technological monopolies, sometimes the government offers patents that grants a company exclusive rights for a limited time. For example, a lot of allergy medications function under patents. That's why they're relatively expensive. And copyrights. The government gives authors, musicians, artists, and other creative people exclusive rights to sell their creative works that encourages them to not only produce, but it also protects their profitability. Oftentimes, a monopoly will put up several barriers to enter the market, so it maintains their monopoly. A barrier to enter a market is an obstacle that limits the ability of new firms to enter that particular industry. Sometimes there are legal barriers that get put into place, like patents and copyrights. Sometimes there's a control of resources. For example, diamond mining, you have to control and own areas where there are diamonds to mine in order for you to enter that market. Significant economies of scale sometimes occurs when businesses are able to provide that product on such a large scale that no one can enter the market to compete with them. Sometimes there are market advantages of existing firms that they own so much of the market already that is a barrier to entry in and of itself. All of these barriers to entry allow the existing firms, the existing monopolies, to earn economic profit in the long run. We'll talk about long run versus short run in the next video. We're going to cover long run versus short run after we discover the last two market structures. Just a final note on significant economies of scale. Sometimes a monopoly has what we call an economy of scale, which is a situation where the average cost of production falls as the firm gets bigger. When that happens, it makes sense for the firm to be as large as necessary to lower the production costs. So sometimes monopolies can be a positive thing. Next up, the two market structures in the middle of the spectrum.